Hello. In my previous video I did this Arduino on a breadboard circuit, and when it came to programming it I went to my local electronics store and they recommended I use this Pololu programmer. You go to pololu.com and you enter 1300. You'll see this USB AVR programmer that they recommend. It sells for about $20 in the States, and they said it's a great little programmer, and they even gave me a 12-page document on how to use it. It gave some background on all sorts of things relevant to programming these chips, and it also gave 3 possible operating systems, Linux and Mac and Windows. And on those 3 systems they had 2 options, AVR IDE and AVR Studio. I had a look at those programs and they're very extensive. If you're used to the Arduino environment, then those programs are a little bit more involved. You need to set fuse bits when you load the bootloader and all sorts of things. So I tried to find a way to use the Arduino environment with this programmer onto my breadboard, and the information I found was all scattered all over, and that's the reason mainly for this video. If you go to this programmer's resources and you scroll down, you find that you've got on the second one here Windows drivers. Okay, I'm using Windows. This tutorial is specifically for Windows 7 and the Arduino environment. I'm sure you can do lots more with this program if you use AVR IDE and AVR Studio, but this is for newbies like myself that likes to do it the easy, simple way. Okay, so you download the drivers and you install them on Windows, and then you connect your programmer to your USB port. One other thing that you need to do is to change the programmer's text folder. On this openenergymonitor.org they talked about ISP programmers, and here at number 3 they talk about the Pololu 1300. They say it works well on Linux, Ubuntu. What they also say, it requires the board to be externally powered. This agrees with the Pololu documentation. However, on the board itself you find there's place to solder in some header pins, which includes 5 volt from the USB and a ground connection. In my case, probably because my board is so simple, I found that this reliably powers the board, but I'm not recommending it necessarily. In this tutorial I'll actually use an external power supply. Then the other thing they say is that the following lines need to be added to Programmers.txt in the Arduino hardware folder. And there's the 3 lines. On Windows the easiest is to go to your shortcut on your desktop, right click on it and select file location. That opens the Arduino folder. You double click on hardware, double click on Arduino, and there you'll find your Programmers.txt document. You open it with Notepad or whatever text editor you use, and at the end of that you add those 3 lines. Then you save and close it again. Okay, now we've already plugged in our programmer, and then we need to find on what COM port it is. So you go to Start, Devices and Printers, and then you find under Unspecified it shows as Pololu USB AVR Programmer. If you double click on that and you select the Hardware tab, then you find that program has got 2 COM ports associated with it. The one is a programming port, the other one is a serial port. If you just hover your mouse onto the programming port, you'll see in my case it shows up as COM5. It's a port for the programming port. Okay, so you can cancel that and close that. If you then go to your Arduino environment and you go to Tools, You go to board, in my case it's a Uno board compatible. You go to serial port and make sure it's on the COM port where your programming is on and not on the serial port. And then on the programmer, we've got to select AVR ISP V2. Okay, then if we select burn bootloader, it says it's burning bootloader to input output board. This may take a minute. It says done burning bootloader. So now we've got a bootloader onto our chip on the breadboard. If we now open the sample sketch, go to File, Examples, Basic, Blink, then you see there's the Blink sketch. Before, one would either verify it and then upload, or just click Upload, and then it says it's compiling sketch. Done. Binary sketch size, it says it's uploading. And then it gives that dreaded STK500 get sync not in sync error. That's a bit of a catch-all error. It doesn't really say much. You can Google for days and not get to the bottom of the error. What I found is probably somewhere in the documentation, but fortunately I found it by accident, is a way to load this sketch onto the chip is to go to File, Upload using Programmer. If you do that, then it says it's compiling sketch, gives you the size, and it says done uploading. This works well, and it actually works. The thing to note though is it has overwritten the bootloader. The bootloader is no longer on that chip. It started at the beginning from the chip and it put the sketch on there to load the chip. And if you need to use the bootloader, then you would have to go back and say Tools burn bootloader. Now you've got your bootloader back on there. It says done burning bootloader. And then you would have to go back to your board, and you would have to use the TX and RX lines and connect those to the corresponding pins on the Arduino. TX would go to RX and RX would go to TX through a 1K resistor. And this board hasn't got auto reset, but it's quite simple. If we hold in our reset button while the sketch is compiling, and just before you think it's going to start uploading, you let go of the reset button, it loads quite reliably. So you can, if you want to load sketches with this programmer through the serial ports and the bootloader, then that's also possible. Some people don't like to do that because it hasn't got auto reset. The benefit if you load it through the programming socket is you get that extra little bit of space on the chip that the bootloader is not occupying now. Okay, and then we've got our chip blinking away, and it does actually work. Thank you very much for watching.